There you go. Yeah, not the first time that people have asked about your which you believe. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Sustainable. Yeah, I love that. And my other wife, Lois, loved it. Oh, yeah, I love the exchange. Allison, are we ready? What do you mean? Evelyn, get in here. We ready? We're good. Okay, welcome. Hello. That's better. I want to thank you all. Remember Field of Dreams? Make a museum and they will come. And this is it. This is a dream team. This is my mother, Oliver Shalom, at this moment with Tvel. This is so great to see you all here to celebrate this museum and its opening. I'm Dr. Stephen Sorrow, and I would like to begin with the pledge led by Saul and Mel.
I think Mel's talking over here.
What else is new?
Let me go find him.
Right. Here he is. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
which stands one nation under God, peaceful, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. One of the wonderful things about New Hampshire is the synagogues and the Federation. And one of the bright lights in the synagogue and a sign of spring is Rabbi Nashville. Come on down. Well,
Coming up.
come on up.
Thank you, Steve. That's very sweet of you. A few weeks ago, Steve was visiting our congregation to present the Shem Tov Award for our wonderful volunteer, EJ Cohen. And I was very moved when he invited me to give tonight's presentation.
Would you accept that? I'm so thrilled.
Avinu Shabbat Shemayim, our God who dwells in heaven, We ask for your blessings and your support as we dedicate a new museum celebrating the history of the Jews of New Hampshire. This state has not always been hospitable to its Jewish citizens. The first state constitution in 1784 limited office holding to Protestants. That requirement was enforced for more than 90 years when finally the document was amended to remove religious qualifications for office holding. But even so, the numbers of Jews living in the Granite State has always been very small. Early records name William Abrams and Aaron Moses having moved to Samberton in 1693. A list of grants to settlers in 1770 included Joseph Levy, a settler near present-day Ossipee. In 1862, the American Israelite reported that a minyan had gathered in Manchester to observe the holidays, but no further report ever followed. In 1880, J. Wolfe was the first recorded permanent Jewish resident of the state. 10 years later, Adath Yeshurun was founded. Temple Israel, originally called Anshe Sfard, followed in 1897 as a breakaway from Adath Yeshurun, usually how a state has its second synagogue. The first building erected as a synagogue in New Hampshire was built in 1911 to house Adath Yeshurun, and in 1917, Anshe Sfard also built its own place of worship. The Jewish settlers who were escaping the problems of Eastern Europe came as small merchants and tradespeople to the downtown areas of Manchester, Nashua, Dover, Portsmouth, and Keene, as well as Claremont, eventually having numbers of Jewish entrepreneurs. Professional people, lawyers, physicians, dentists, teachers began to appear often as the children of the first native-born American Jews in New Hampshire. Concord's Jewish population grew in the 1940s when the tanneries north of Boston relocated just outside the state capital, bringing many Jewish workers and managers with them. God, our tradition tells us that in the wilderness, the Israelites built to you a tabernacle so that you might be in their midst. Solomon built you a stately house, a place where your presence might abide forever. Now, O God, the many staff and volunteers of the Federation of New Hampshire, each dedicated to working in partnership with you to complete the work of creation, come again together to build a home dedicated to preserving the history of the Jewish people of this state. We pray that you dwell in this home with us, just as we pray that you dwell in our midst and bless our undertakings. Help us to work with one another in fulfillment of the divine imperative, L'taken olam b'malchut Shaddai, to bring wholeness to the world through acts of loving kindness. Vayehinu am Adonai Eloheinu ma'aseh yadenu, konona Eloheinu Aleinu, uma'aseh yadenu konenehu. May the favor of the eternal our God be upon us, that the work of our hands prosper, will prosper the work of our hands. Finish, of course, with the Shehachianu. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehachayanu v'kiyamanu v'hidyanu v'azman hazeh. Blessed are you, eternal our God, ruler of the universe, for you have kept us alive, sustained us, and brought us to this joyful
Wow,
moment.
beautiful. Thank you.
Amen.
Toda rabah. There you go. I was trained, my medical training was in Chicago under Mayor Daley. And I learned the watchword of politics, vote early and often. And when I returned from my 25th medical reunion, Mayor Daley was still mayor. There was a son. One of the joys of living in New Hampshire in the diaspora, which is not Nottingham, no, not Manchester, is that we have a really incredibly effective mayor. But I tell you, what about this? Is if you notice, there's no parking tickets here. Anyways,
I can help with that.
yeah, please do. Anyways, we are thrilled, especially with our ties to Manchester, to have the mayor, Joyce Craig. Come on down. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to join you this evening. It's such an honor to be here today and to recognize this museum. The Jewish community in New Hampshire has a vibrant history, and I want to thank the rabbi for sharing so much. I learned so much, so thank you. And it spans many, many generations. And now we can celebrate and honor the contributions of our diversity in our Jewish community right here in one place. And it's really, really fabulous. I was also really pleased to learn that the museum's first exhibit is focused on the life and times of Dr. Benjamin Bronstein, a Manchester resident, a graduate of Manchester Central High School, who sacrificed his life to save ours. And I look forward to future exhibits that will provide a deeper appreciation and understanding of people of all backgrounds. So I want to congratulate the Jewish Federation of New Hampshire and the entire New Hampshire Jewish community on this wonderful success. I know a lot of work went into this, and we're very proud of all of you, and I can't wait to share it with others. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a Lower Canoi moment when I was actually interviewed for National New Hampshire Public Radio about the museum. How many remember Lower Canoi? Sure. One of the things that she talked about is when I show my hat, she called me and some of you the silver tsunami. So one of the question that the interview asked me is, how come this museum took so long to happen? And part of the reason it happened, I'm stealing my punchline. Robin, you stole all my good history lines. Anyways, the reason this is happening is because when I came up with this cockamamie scheme of a museum, the Federation said, yeah, it should be here. And that is, and because we could not be a museum without a key. That's Spanish for that vote, without thing. So I'd like to welcome our Executive Director, Allison. Say a few words, please.
Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see so many faces that I don't recognize. So welcome everyone for joining us tonight for this first presentation of New Hampshire Jewish Museum. As a lifelong resident of New Hampshire myself, I was born and raised in Manchester. I have always been actively involved in Jewish life in our state and believe that archiving the Jewish history is an important piece of the work of the Jewish Federation of New Hampshire. While this is not a physical museum, it will share exhibits of programming from time to time, highlighting different people, places, and history of our Jewish community. With Veterans Day just last week, this is the perfect time to bring the museum's first program to the public, highlighting Manchester resident Benjamin Bronstein. Before we begin, though, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of one of our community members. Gary Singer passed away recently. And his parents, Bernice and Irving Singer, they were pillars in Greater Manchester Jewish community, founders of Temple Israel right here in Manchester. And Gary and his siblings, they have continued to support the Greater Manchester Jewish community and the Jewish Federation of New Hampshire. As we're talking about the history of Jewish New Hampshire, we couldn't not acknowledge that. And so lastly, I just want to say to Steve, Saul, and Mel, you've dedicated many hours to tonight's program, and I want to thank you for your dedication to the archival of New Hampshire's Jewish history, and I will hand it over to you guys.
Thank you. When you mentioned the Singer family, first of all, again, we talk about family. Ruth Ann, please stand up. This is incredible. We have a living link. Please explain how you're related to Ben Bronstein.
Ben Bronstein was my late father's brother.
Isn't that amazing? Let's hear it for Ruth. Thank you for coming up. And because this is tax-free New Hampshire and from Massachusetts, we'd like you to, on the way home, to get a flat screen television, a washer and dryer, some alcohol. And because she dates Michael, she actually knew where we were. Anyways, this has been a dream. It came, has anyone ever heard of the New England consortium, a collaborative. It's out of the Newburyport and Newbury Street Group genealogy. And we started many years ago with the theme, is there any something as a, the Jews of all the New England states have something in common. And I think they do. There were Southern Jews, there was other Jews, but I think when I got involved with that, I said, wait a minute. Now that I feel that I'm part of New England, I'm from Connecticut, it's more important, I realize there's something really unique about New Hampshire. And one of the things that has been, but the thrill for me has been through the Federation and through all what I've done. We go from Bethlehem to Laconia to Nashua to Portsmouth. It's a remarkable collection of different stars in the Jewish flag that New Hampshire represents. And when they asked me in National Public Television, radio, how come it took us so long? It came about, this came about because, forgive the analogy, a perfect storm. The perfect storm was that the New England Collaborative said, hey, this is a cool thing to talk about history. And the Federation said, yeah, go for it. And a moment to, how many are familiar with the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation? They actually provided the a grant for those who are Yiddish, schreibt in the Geld. They wrote the check. Anyways, so it's okay. A little bit. Again, I want to acknowledge a couple people here. My new daughter, where's Kate? Kate, stand up, please. She is one of the new stars in the flag of New Hampshire. She is the head of the Cohen Foundation, or Cohen Center. Thank you. What I pointed out is that in case for non-new New Hampshire people, New Hampshire is divided into a series of city-states. Portsmouth does not know that Nashua even exists, and vice versa. Laconia, unless you go on their boat, that's Bupkis. But my point is that one of the things I love about this museum is it unites, it brings together the history of all Jews of New Hampshire. And we've been here for a while, but we are very much part of the Jewish fabric. So many Jews that we, and the list is, you're going to say something, Harry? Look, I want to have, Harry is my biblical scholar. When I go, by the way, I did want to make my loose association with the Singer family. One of the things I do, which I believe is historic, is I'm encouraged by Saul and Stephen Singer to attend the Minyan at Temple Israel in Manchester. And as Stephen Singer points out, it's the longest, oldest, and most continuous Minyan between Boston and Montreal, which is really fantastic when you think about it. So when we think of the Singer family, that's history. But so many entertainers have come from this place. How many entrepreneurs have come? Saul has given me a list of all these doctors that he knew that have done things that have made phenomenal contributions to things. In politics, we've had senators, stuff like that. So this one museum is a place to celebrate and bring it together. Now, when you have a chance to look around, we have remarkably that. Just turn around for 1 second and look at that behind you and see this incredible face that was handmade by Carpenter and Lee. And it really, it shows the uniqueness of the museum and the Federation. Why is it that way? Because it's on wheels. Why is it on wheels? So that sometimes little kids are here and we have to move it out of the way. So, I mean, again, we're very practical. So it's, again, as one other moment that makes me, this is what makes it so historic for me. How many are familiar with the concept Ner Tamid? That means the eternal light. If you go into a synagogue, you will see a light over the Torah, which is always burning. I'm part of Eitz Chaim in Derry, and we built and moved into the first new synagogue in New Hampshire in 30 years. We came into that synagogue and there was no eternal light on. And we had a moment because of Jay back there and his son, the eternal light was not on and now is on, and it's on forever. We have a Shekiana moment, thank you, Robin, but we have a moment where we are turning on the museum, New Hampshire Jewish Museum. It didn't exist until today, which is incredible. So you're all part of history. Thank you. I now bring to Mel, who's going to talk about Ben Bronstein and all the things. Take it away. Oh.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? This is a real honor to be able to do this, especially working with my partners in crime, Steve and Saul. It has been a labor of love. We come in here and we sit and we go over the pictures and we go, oh my God, remember that? Remember that? And it has been just wonderful. I have always been fascinated by the story of Ben Bronstein. I knew the family. I know Ruth, Ben. I knew her dad as the man who had the best clothing store in Manchester. I knew her brother Joe as we used to call him Uncle Joe because he came to our house and played poker every couple of weeks. He also was the first principal at Manchester Memorial, and I believe still holds the record as the winningest high school basketball coach in New Hampshire. So this is a family that has given a great deal. And the story of Ben really struck me, and I hope that you get a chance to take a look at the front page of the Manchester Union from March of 1942, which describes what happened to him in where his ship was torpedoed by a sub. Only 11 people survived. He was not one of them. So a couple words about Ben, and we have a, here we go. So he was the son of Max and Dina. He was born in 1915. He was a Manchester native, went to Central High School, and he was in Central High School. He went from there to the University of New Hampshire, where he was the captain of the basketball team, as well as being a great scholar. Wonderful little story about Ben, and it's all little snippets. It's hard to find information from firsthand accounts anymore. But he and a bunch of the other guys who were on the basketball team used to do barnstorming. And he would, he and the other guys would play all around the state. They made a few dollars, and Ben never used his name. His last name out of concern for people not liking the fact that he was Jewish. However, whatever money was made by the whole team, he was sure to split evenly among everyone, even though he was the star. He went on to Tufts Medical School. And he was then made a Navy medical officer assigned to the USS Jacob Jones. And he was killed in action in February 29, 1942, when the country had made a decision to take the ships that would have been protective to the shoreline and move most of them to help to move goods from the US over to England. Suddenly it was laid bare, and a sub came up on them at 5 o'clock in the morning. 2 torpedoes hit it. One hit in the front part of the ship, the other in the back. and there were very few survivors because there was also a lot of armament to the ship. Anyway, the ship itself comes up in 1943, the first of two USS Bronsteins. This one was a sub hunter. Oh, sorry, I'm not used to this. Okay. Yes. Okay. There we go. And this, of course, is this is the sub. This is the first of the two USS Bronsteins, and the keel was laid for it in 1943, and it ran until 1945. Two interesting kinds of things about this that I hope you'll kind of enjoy and hopefully remember was that the ship that was named for him was a sub hunter and had 4 kills. And in addition, a couple of things. The captain of the first the USS Bronstein had a famous quote, and that quote was that depth charges have an interesting laxative effect on the enemy. The other thing that was interesting was when the ship went into harbor and was being in the process of having goods brought on and other work being done. An orchestra would play Habanagil.
So we're going to do it. We got the ships coming in.
Okay.
Again, we won't mind when this ship came into port, they played Habanagil. That's so exciting, that detail.
A lot of wonderful little details that my family would tell you I would go on forever. We'd all be asleep, but it doesn't matter.
This is a Korean chorus. Thank you, Phil.
The park, which is in downtown Manchester, Bronstein Park, was actually initially. I'm not used to all this stuff. All right. This is the park. Okay. So the park was originally dedicated to the Spanish American War, and the soldier that you'll see there was actually a soldier that was cast in bronze that was in 50 different parks all over the country, that's there, and so you'll notice if you have a chance to go there that it's very striking. And you'll also notice that there was apparently one other brother whose name was Max, I guess. And Max has a, no, is that right, Lou? No, it was Max.
This is the father.
Pardon me? Max's father? wasn't there? Okay,
He had another brother.
yeah, okay. Well, anyway, there's also a bench for Max Bronstein that's there. Oh, okay. So the park was dedicated to Ben Richard because he was the first naval officer to be killed in New Hampshire during the Second World War. I want to say a couple of words about the times, such as they were. When I first saw the possibility of putting together that front page, I thought, wow, this is really kind of cool. And then I was really interested to see if they had any follow-up stories the next day. Okay. And the answer is no, because so many things were happening and so many people were being killed so fast. The front page of the next day's Manchester Union talked about 500 and something people being killed in the Pacific. So things were moving very, very fast in ways that we can't even imagine at this point. Okay. I guess I've kind of said it. Does anyone have a question I might try to answer? Pardon me? Where's Bronstein Park? If you're on Hanover Street, you know where the First Congregational Church is? It's right across the street on Hanover Street. It takes up that whole block. And there is a monument to Ben Richard, and as well as the other folks that have been. Anything else? Yes, sir.
The submarines that were sunk by the USS Bronstein, what nationality were they?
German.
All forward German?
I believe so. I'd have to, I said that with authority, but I really should probably double check that. But there were 4 of them. I remember reading that. There's a lot of information on this, but you have to scour multiple locations to find this particular kind of stuff. Anything else I can answer?
Thank you.
Okay, well, let me say one last thing. Steve,
Yeah.
okay, which is that, I hope that you'll find this really useful and really interesting. Saul's going to do a piece of information about the veterans of that time. Our hope is to take this as the beginning step in doing other kinds of things, like Jewish politicians in New Hampshire, Jewish medical people in New Hampshire, Jewish entertainers from New Hampshire.
At the end.
Oh, I'm too far ahead?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna.
I think I'm being
That's the
yanked.
climax.
Okay, I think I'm being yanked. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. One of my heroes is Saul. One of the first people I met when I came to New Hampshire was Saul. And he and his wife Linda were incredibly gracious and inviting. And he did something which I think is still fabulous. He and Temple, what do you call your temple? What is it? Yudavishur. They have orchestrated for years what's that place? The New Horizons homeless shelter. They organized a Christmas dinner where the Jews and Muslims of New Hampshire got together and made a meal for the homeless. And so the non-Jews, the Christians, could be home for Christmas. And that's how I met Saul. And there was such a wonderful, again, he's one of those towering lights in my life that has been just fabulous. So he's been like Mel and a guiding light to keep sustaining us to this point. Come on down. Bottom line is that Steve has done 99 and 44, 100% of this work. He deserves most of the credit. And I would agree. Thank you, Steve. So I'd like to talk about recognizing New Hampshire's Jewish veterans. Click the next thing, something. We're just getting started. on this project of collecting the names of Jewish veterans from our state. In the Federation files, we came across a publication from the YM and YWHA community from 1945, showing a very inspiring honor roll of Jewish men and women from throughout New Hampshire in service to our country. There are pictures of 145 individuals, 5 of whom sadly died in this conflict, including Dr. Ben Bronstein. There is an additional list of 180 servicemen and servicewomen whose pictures were not available. Their families, like families from other ethnic groups, came to America seeking freedom, and they were eager to protect it and preserve it. This is just the start of our mission of recognizing our contributions to our country's armed forces. As we check now, we see an impressive roster of Jewish veterans who were buried in cemeteries in New Hampshire, not only those who served our United States in World War II, but those who have served in other times throughout the years. Some of these individuals are, as expected, in the original World War II veteran listing. We have the example of our Manchester Hebrew Cemetery, where 136 veterans are buried. The list of veterans from the Jewish Cemetery in Portsmouth numbers 66, in Dover 7, and at the New Hampshire Veterans Cemetery in Boscawen is 54. This is just the beginning of our mission. We need to get names of veterans who are buried in the other Jewish cemeteries in our state. We're also in the process of compiling a register of surviving Jewish veterans from throughout the state. And we have 11 in Portsmouth and 20 in the Manchester area. And we're sure there are many others, not only in these areas, but throughout New Hampshire. And those of you who have not so far submitted your name, please send it to the Federation. And we clearly must not forget those who are still on active duty now. Thank you, Manchester area grown U.S. Gunnery Sergeant Benjamin Warshaw in Iwakuni, Japan, and U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Sandra Katchen at Kadena Air Force Base on Okinawa. Thank you, Dover's Lila Cherum, Sergeant in the Marine Corps Reserves, and Specialist Duncan C.L. McNaughton, who has gone from U.S. Army paratrooper in Italy to Massachusetts National Guard. And thank you, Mark Sorrell from Portsmouth. We express our profound gratitude to all our veterans, those who have passed and those who are still with us, for their service to our country, the United States of America. These New Hampshire-rooted individuals are a sterling example of the many Jewish veterans from all over America who have served our nation throughout the years of existence of our country. Percentage of Jews in New Hampshire and the United States is said to be about 0.05 to 0.07%. But I would bet that those who have served, the percentage of those who have served is much, much greater than that. I would say right now, let us please rise as we observe a moment of silence in memory of those who have passed and also of our dear friends. And to end, God bless America. Stay there. Mel, come on up. This is Three Musketeers. How many remember the Three Musketeers? On the middle. Middle child syndrome. Thank you all for coming, but as you've heard several times, this is the first step in the museum. First of all, I want to thank Jay. I hope people get a chance to walk down the Evelyn Memorial hallway.
I was gonna comment if there, the history gallery,
Yeah, yeah.
that's right, the gallery is down the hallway to the left, you'll see, we've got lots of pictures up there. Wonderful.
And Jay was nice enough to put them up, so thank you. So this, we honored Dr. Bernstein, the Jews of New Hampshire, and the veterans. Your turn. Can anyone suggest where we should go next? Other types of exhibits you'd like to see? You can't have dead air. Yes, Robin, give me an idea. Everyone, can't. No? Yes, Nicole.
What about those who serve in government officials?
Oh,
State legislature,
that's true.
judiciary.
Glad you mentioned that. You get an A. Here's my buddy Nickel, and I don't give a dime what he's all about. But I am, one of the things that made me proud of this museum is over there on that table, we have letters of welcome and joy from the 2 senators, the 2 congressmen, and the governor. He wouldn't even come to your show, but he came to love. It was on me first. So anyone got an idea? Right, those in politics, we've had senators, we've had, that's a great choice. Other people that you can think of that we should focus on for another exhibit. What?
Medical.
Medical, yeah. So we'll rattle off a couple of the doctors that you keep on telling you about.
Well, there's a picture of Dr. Sam Katz, who passed away sadly a couple of weeks ago, but at age 95, who was actually one of my mentors at Boston Children's Hospital. And a wonderful man. He was one of the developers of the measles vaccine and chief of pediatrics at Duke University for many years. Sidney Yellis from Claremont, who was chief of pediatrics at Tufts for many, many years. And many others. Steve Sora.
Any other ideas? Again, this is just to be, yes, Evelyn.
I'm just curious, the Industrial Revolution started here in New England, and I'm assuming that, thinking that maybe some of the, what the Jewish influence might have been and how they.
Yeah.
contributed to that.
Jewish manufacturing, yeah. There's nothing else that's Dean Kamen.
Well, part of that too, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Artists and musicians.
yeah, artists and musicians, that's a great idea. Thank you, terrific. So this is just the beginning. So, well, any other ideas?
Yeah, people who are politicians, the head of the Hampshire House at one point was Jewish. He actually was governor for a day. I don't remember all the detail on that. But there's so many different things. And what's been really interesting to me has been that now that people are hearing that we're wanting to do something like this, we're beginning to hear from other people who say, I think I have some information for you. And the Federation itself has a lot of information I was never even aware of. And we've been looking at some of that. And as more information comes in, there's a tremendous possibility of being able to do more. Our family has been involved with the Wright Museum for years up in, I'm having a hard time. Pardon me? Yeah, Wolfboro. And that started out, when I was first seeing it, as a very small museum, and now it's become quite significant, quite beautiful. And I think there's so much that we can do, so much that we could make from this. And what strikes you or struck me as a lifelong person from the Manchester area was that there's so much that has gone on here. If you go down to the river, you can sit next to Ralph Baer, who's down there. And there are so many other folk who have been from Manchester and still have some connection. Andrew Sandler still does. Other people like him. He's the person that sort of comes to your mind quickly. And so if anybody has information that they think we should be taking a look at. We'd love to have it. I'm not exactly sure how we would catalog it. We haven't even figured out how to catalog what we already have. But being able to begin putting it together and maybe even finding some people who'd like to volunteer to do one thing or another. Just somebody who has some secretarial skills, who can do some Excel work. We have an awful lot of people who have been veterans, and we sort of like to alphabetize that off an old sheet as one simple thing. But there's so much more that can and should be done, and we don't even know what it all is yet. But I will say this much, it's been fun. It's been an awful lot of fun to be able to sit in this room with these two guys and look at pictures together, which generate feelings about other
You
pictures.
recognize these people.
Yeah.
Look at those pictures on the wall of people in business here in Manchester in the late 30s, and those honoring the soldier going off to war. Pretty impressive.
Mhm.
Yes, Robin.
I would think one thing you might want to consider, because I imagine, like something about Jacob, many of the congregations have kept their own history, have their own archives, is to see about getting liaisons from each of the congregations. Like we have an archive committee at TBJ. The chair of that committee would easily be a wonderful liaison for you.
What a great idea.
And I know, for example, in Concord, there is a very rich history of the Jewish community in Concord. If you're driving up 93, one of the things you look down when you're in Concord, you see Cohen Steel. So Cohen Steel's the founders of that, their son, still a member of the congregation, and many people don't know that that is where the big menorah that is lit every Hanukkah on the State House that Cohen Steel made it for Chabad to be able to. So there's little things like that in Jewish history, and those are the kinds of things that a lot of synagogues have their own information about that can.
Okay,
really
that's
be
exactly
shared
no.
with-
One of the things we like to be as a research center, and it got me going with the New England Collaborative, is that, for example, we got information from the Dover Synagogue. There are a number of synagogues, sadly, Oliver Shalom, that have no longer existed. And we keep that. It's one of the things we want to preserve that.
Well, one of the things when the Berlin synagogue closed,
Right.
One of its members, Irving Morrison, had been living in Concord and became a part of TBJ and brought to us the memorial board.
Oh, wow.
So we have the memorial board in our congregation, and when it came down, there was this beautiful design all around it, and it was enormous. It was bigger than like 4 of our memorial boards combined. So a few years ago, we cut off the piece that is just the names. That's what's on our wall, and all of the decorative Judaica symbolism we donated to a Berlin Historical Society.
What a nice idea.
So even trying to get like the picture of it to be able to catalog something like that, that was a piece of the Berlin community.
Great idea, yeah. And then there's also Claremont, so,
Right.
Steve,
yeah.
And we've got some members.
What?
former
you want to let the Zoom, you want to close off the program so the Zoom can go because they can't be part of the conversation, and then we can keep the
Okay,
conversation
we're
going.
gonna close and then we can continue. There's a lot of things to see here, some books. For those who haven't signed in, we didn't do the normal DNA test. We're doing that. But we're gonna close like a Broadway show with music. Dina, I want to thank Dina and Allison for sacrificing that night.
So that clicker turns it on here, and I will turn it on for the Zoom.
This is our finale.
But you need to, if you want them to see it, you need to.
Okay, we got it. I can do that.
It's good.
Get out of the way.
We're gonna.
God bless America.
You know,